Morning, Hi-Fi fans. Now today, as you can see on the table in that box, I've got a new item just arrived. Now I had to go up the post office and collect it. I've just got back because it was due for delivery yesterday, but I was having such a good time playing around with the Sansui, and I did have it a little bit loud yesterday, so I didn't hear the door, did I? So I missed the delivery yesterday, and I had to go up the post office this morning and collect it. So it's my own fault for playing reggae too loud. But in my defence, on the tracking, it said it would be delivered between 3 and 5. So at 3 o'clock, I turned off the reggae and I was just quiet looking at receivers for sale on the computer. And then when it got to 5 o'clock and it still hadn't turned up, I checked the tracking and it said delivery attempted at 1:45. So I had missed it because at 1:45 I still had reggae pumping on the Sansui. So it is a vintage Sony STR 6040 receiver. Now this receiver is quite an old one. It's from 1969 and according to Hi-Fi Engine it is 22 watts per channel. And I have took a little bit of a gamble on buying this one because it was listed as being 117 volts only. So it was listed as being an American version. So it won't work in the UK because it is set to 120 volts only. But I don't think it is because I've had these Sonys before, not this exact one, but I've had one similar. So I think this is going to have the little part inside where you can change the voltage to 240. So although this may be the American version of this receiver, I do think I might be able to change it and get it working here in the UK without a step-down transformer. So I have had a little bit of a gamble with this one that I can change the voltage. And the other bit that sort of put me off this one, it's got two knobs missing off the front. The two big knobs are missing, the ones from either side. But one of them is the volume, and the volume on these is a split knob. So that might be quite hard to get hold of. So with the voltage not being right, and I don't know if I can change it, so that was a gamble. And a bit of a gamble is, can I find the knobs for this Sony, because it is quite old, this Sony, and being a split knob that might be hard to track down. You can't just put any knob on that. And also it only had two pictures of it, a picture of the front that was really dark and a terrible picture, so you couldn't really see what condition it was in, and it had a photo of the back that was just as bad, but you could see the sticker that said 117 volt only. So all them four things kind of put me off this Sony a little bit. I did look at it for a while and thought, oh, shall I have a little punt on that? But then I thought, no, leave it. It might be right terrible condition. The seller did say it was in nice condition, but you couldn't really see nothing in the pictures, so I just thought, oh, I'll leave that. But then about a week or two later, I came across it again, and the price had been really reduced, so it was really cheap. So my missus was with me, and I went to her, that is really cheap, but that's a right gamble. She went, why is it? I said, because it might only work on 120 volts and you can't change it. It's got two knobs missing off the front, which might be really hard to get hold of. And although the seller says it's in good condition, just look at the picture, you can't even really see it, so it might be knackered. She went, well, don't buy it then. I went, yeah, but I sort of want to buy it because I think you can change the voltage. You might find the knobs and it might not be in that bad condition. And just look at the price, they're so cheap. And if you can find the knobs and get it working, it really will be a nice little vintage receiver. She went, well, buy it then. I went, yeah, I'm thinking about it, but I've also found this. And I showed her a picture of a little Kenwood that I'd found. And she went, yeah, it looks nice, but I think we should try and save the little Sony and stop it getting broken up for parts. And then she went, right, come on, let fate decide. Let's do this, 'cause we haven't done it for ages. And she got a coin out and went to me, call it. I went, all right, heads we buy the Sony, tails we buy the Kenwood. She went, right, and flipped the coin. The coin come up heads, so that was it. We bought the Sony and here it is. And so I'm not really sure what condition this one's going to be in, but it was nicely packed up with a load of bubble wrap, so that's good. So the moment of truth, when I take off this last layer of bubble wrap, is it going to be in good condition like what the seller said, or is it going to be knackered? Because you really couldn't see nothing in the photos, and it puts me off when the photos are bad, because nowadays all cameras take a half decent photo, so when the pictures are terrible I always think the seller is trying to hide something. And I'm looking at that there. The front of that looks really nice, and that lid. Look at that. Sony Str 6040. It does actually look in really good condition. So as long as it has got a volts changer in it, like I think it had, and I can get this old Sony working, then this Sony could have been a really good buy. So let me just get the camera off of the tripod and we get in there and have a better look at the front of this Sony and have a little feel of the pots and all the switches to see what they are all working like, see how they feel. So it has got a good look to the front of it, this Sony, that is so 1960s. And the two knobs that are missing off of the front, they would be much bigger than the other ones. And a bit of the lettering has rubbed off there by the on-off button. But apart from that, this faceplate looks in really nice condition. It really does. Can't see no like scratches on it or anything. It looks really good, that faceplate. So let's check out the buttons. Function one feels good. That selector one felt like it was working nice. The tuning dial is working good, although it's got no knob on it, it's still working nice and smooth. Yeah, that monitor one feels good. Stereo mode feels nice. Filter, that feels alright as well. Treble, that feels like it's working nice and smooth. Bass pot, oh, that feels a little bit stiff, that bass pot. Loudness button, that felt alright, and the on off. Yeah, that feels alright, the on off switch. So it's this one here that might be hard to get because it's a split knob. So the front of the knob does the volume on one speaker and the back part of the knob does the volume on the other. So that is the one that I think I might struggle to get my hands on, because you could put any knob on that tuning dial, as long as it looks right, it'd look alright, any knob would go on there. But where this one here is a split knob, you're going to have to get the right one for it. You won't be able to just put something similar on there. So that might be quite hard to get hold of, that knob. But hopefully I will be able to find one. But other than the missing knobs, everything else on the front of this felt fine. The bass pot was a little bit stiff, but not that bad. So everything else about the front of this Sony felt pretty good. So let me just put the camera down on top of the Sansui, and then I shall turn it round and we'll have a look at the back. And I'll show you the little sticker or whatever it was on it, the little plate that said it only works on 117 volts. And it's a little sticker. I'm looking at it now, and it says this equipment is set for operation at 117 volts. So you see it there just above the outlet. So the seller has read that and apparently not tried this or not done anything with this, because he's just assumed that this is like 120 volts only. So he has not tried it, when it has got a 240 UK plug on it, so it might have been set to 240 already. But the seller has took that sticker as being like 100% what this little receiver is set to, when I think it's got a voltage regulator inside this where you can change that, and that sticker just means it was set to that when it came out of the factory. That sticker does not mean it cannot be changed. Well, I don't think it does. It might not have a voltage changer in it, but I think it will have, because I've had the model before. I have had a 6045, which is just a slightly later version of this one, and I'm sure that one had a voltage changer inside it. It wasn't that long ago I had that, and I remember servicing it. I'm sure it had a voltage changer in it. So this one is very similar to that one. So hopefully this one will have a voltage changer inside it, the same as that one did. And it does look good condition on the back, this Sony, as well. You can see there it will only take one set of speakers, but the back of this Sony really does look nice. There is no damage on it at all. It's got all its little screws in all the terminals and things. The aerial looks good, so it all looks really good on the back of this Sony. So like I said, I had an STR, I'm sure it was a 6045, which really did look like this one. And that one, I think, was from about 1972 or something like that, whereas this one is from 1969. And this one, the 6040, is 22 watts per channel into 8 ohms. But the other one, I'm sure it was a 6045, so it's a bigger number, but I'm sure that one was either 15 or 18 watts per channel into 8 ohms. So the 6040 is actually more powerful than the 6045, which seems a bit strange, but apparently that's how it is. And it sounded nice, that 6045 that I had. It was a nice little receiver, so hopefully this one will sound as good as that. This one could even sound a bit better than that, because this is the older model. And a lot of the time, when these companies update their model, it does not mean that they made it better. 9 times out of 10 it just means they found a cheaper way to produce it. So sometimes the updated one is not as good as the original. So I'll just put the camera back down and turn this old Sony back round so we can see the front again. And I am a bit of a fan of a lot of these old Sony receivers and amplifiers from the 60s and the 70s because I think they get a little bit overlooked. They are better than people give them credit for, so they don't make the money that they should. They're not cheap, don't get me wrong, they're not dirt cheap, these Sonys, but some of them, not all the models, but some of the models are really good. I'm not sure where this 6040 is going to fall into it. Hopefully this will be one of the good ones. But I have had some of the bigger ones in this model, like the sort of higher up the range ones, and some of them are really, really good. And alright, they do make a bit of money, but they do not make the money like they would if they had a Sansui badge on them or a Marantz badge on them when they are as good. Some of this Sony stuff really is top quality gear and it is great value for money. So I've just put it on top of the Sansui just to give you a bit of a size comparison. So that is a Sansui 310 receiver. And you can see with the Sony sitting on top of it, that Sony is much deeper. It's not quite as wide. Well, it is more or less the same width, really. It's just that the Sansui's got the little side wooden panels on it, making it a bit wider. So they are pretty much the same width, but the Sony is a fair bit taller. And I am really liking my new Sony already, because it looks a lot better than I thought it was going to. And as you've probably noticed in the video, it has already got a 240 plug on it. And you couldn't see that in the two terrible pictures. So that's sort of saying that the voltage might have already been changed on this one, and someone might have already been using it in the UK. And it's surprising that the seller never tried it because it has got a 240 plug on it, so you thought it would have plugged it in rather than just saying it only works on 117 volts. Or maybe the seller actually fitted that plug on it and then plugged it in, and when a load of smoke come out the top of it, he realised that it is for 117 volts only, and then just sold it. So I do hope that wasn't done. I hope this thing is not set to 117 volts and it has been plugged into 240. I do hope that wasn't done to this Sony. And this is the first Sony that has gone on to the channel, but it won't be the last because I really like this Sony stuff. I think it's good value for money. And I do like a lot of the later stuff from the 80s and that. So I will try and buy some of that gear for the channel. I'll try and get some more Sony stuff from the 70s and from the 80s and from the 90s. Because there is a lot of Sony stuff out there that sounds really good and can be picked up for bargain prices. So I definitely will be buying some more gear from Sony. And for those of you who are watching this and thinking, oh, all this talk about buying more Sony, what about the poor little Kenwood, the one that lost the coin toss to the Sony? What about that? Are you just going to leave that one to get broken up for parts? Well, the answer to that is simple, and the answer is no. The little Kenwood will not be getting broken up for parts, because later that evening, me and my missus was playing some music and having a few beers, and then my friend James came round. So we was telling him about the coin toss we had on the Sony and the Kenwood, and my missus went, come on, get a coin, flip it, heads we buy the Kenwood, tails we don't. So we flipped a coin again, and this time the Kenwood won. So it is bought, paid for, and on its way here. So thank you for watching, and I shall see you next time.